Datum, a fixed reference point used by surveyors to measure elevations and land features. In Arizona, datums are commonly used in boundary surveys, floodplain determinations, and development planning, especially in areas with varied topography or flood zone considerations. Debit, an accounting entry on a closing statement showing an amount a party owes or must pay. In Arizona, escrow closings, buyer debits often include purchase price, loan fees, prorated taxes, and HOA dues, while seller debits may include commissions and payoff amounts. Debt coverage ratio, DCR, a lending ratio comparing a property's net operating income to its total debt service. Arizona lenders commonly require a DCR of 1.20, 1.30 for commercial and investment properties to ensure sufficient income to cover loan payments. Debt ratio, a borrower-focused underwriting ratio, comparing total monthly debt obligations to gross monthly income. Arizona residential lenders rely heavily on debt ratios to determine loan approval and maximum borrowing limits. Debt service, the total amount of principal and interest payments due on a loan over a specific period. For Arizona investors, understanding debt service is critical to evaluating cash flow and loan sustainability. Deed in lieu of foreclosure, a voluntary transfer of property ownership from borrower to lender to avoid foreclosure. In Arizona, this option may reduce legal costs and credit damage, but typically requires lender approval and clear title. Deed in trust, an instrument conveying property to a trustee for the benefit of a trust. Arizona land trusts are occasionally used for privacy or estate planning, though they are less common than deeds of trust. Deed of trust, the primary security instrument used in Arizona instead of mortgages. The borrower, truster, conveys title to a trustee to hold as security for the lender. Beneficiary, non-judicial foreclosure through a trustee's sale is permitted under Arizona law. Deed restriction, a limitation placed in a deed that governs how a property may be used or improved. In Arizona, deed restrictions often overlap with CC&Rs and zoning laws and must be disclosed to buyers. Defeasible fee, a fee simple estate that continues only as long as specific conditions are met. If conditions are violated, ownership may revert to the grantor. Arizona examples include land granted for school or religious use only. Deficiency judgment, a court judgment allowing a lender to collect the remaining balance after foreclosure if sale proceeds are insufficient. Arizona's anti-deficiency statutes limit deficiency judgments on qualifying residential properties. Demand, the number of buyers or tenants willing and able to purchase or lease property at various price levels. Arizona agents analyze demand to determine pricing, absorption, and negotiation leverage. Density, a zoning measurement describing how many dwelling units may be built within a given area. Arizona municipalities strictly regulate density to manage growth, traffic, and infrastructure capacity. Deposit, valuable consideration submitted with an offer to demonstrate good faith, typically earnest money. In Arizona, deposits are held in escrow and governed by strict handling and disclosure rules. Depreciable basis, the portion of a property's basis that may be depreciated for tax purposes, generally excluding land. Arizona investors rely on depreciable basis to reduce taxable income. Depreciation, a reduction in property value due to physical wear, functional obsolescence, or economic factors, and a tax deduction allowing owners to recover investment cost over time. Depreciation is a key benefit for Arizona rental property owners. Descent and distribution laws, state laws governing how property passes when a person dies without a valid will. In Arizona, these statutes determine heirs and ownership shares. Determinable fee, a type of defeasible fee estate that automatically reverts to the grantor upon violation of stated conditions, without court action. Devise, the transfer of property through a will from the testator to named beneficiaries. Arizona probate proceedings govern the execution of devises. Discounting, a financial technique used to convert future income into present value. Arizona investors and appraisers use discounting when evaluating long-term investment performance. Discounted cash flow analysis, DCF. A valuation method calculating the present value of projected income streams, commonly used in Arizona commercial real estate and income-producing properties. Discrimination in housing, the unlawful denial of housing or services based on protected characteristics. Arizona agents must comply with federal fair housing laws and state protections, with strict penalties for violations. Disintermediation, the removal of traditional financial intermediaries, such as banks, from lending transactions. Examples include private lending and seller financing used in Arizona investment deals. Documentary stamp, a tax stamp evidencing payment of transfer or financing taxes. While Arizona does not impose a state documentary stamp tax, similar fees may exist at local or transactional levels. Dominant tenement, the property that benefits from an easement appurtenant. In Arizona, dominant tenements gain legal use rights over neighboring servient properties. Dower, a widow's historical life estate interest in her deceased spouse's property, largely abolished or replaced by modern spousal protections under Arizona law. Dual agency, representation of both buyer and seller by the same broker. Arizona law permits dual agency only with informed written consent from all parties. Due on sale clause, a loan provision allowing the lender to demand full repayment if the property is transferred. Arizona buyers must verify assumability before relying on existing financing. Earnest money escrow, an account holding a buyer's deposit under written escrow instructions. Arizona law strictly regulates earnest money handling and release. Easement, a legal right to use another's property for a specific purpose. Common Arizona easements include utility, access, and drainage easements. Economic life, the period during which an improvement contributes value to a property. Economic life impacts depreciation and appraisal calculations in Arizona. Economic obsolescence, a loss in value caused by external factors beyond the owner's control, such as declining neighborhoods or lack of infrastructure investment. Effective gross income, total potential income minus vacancy and collection losses. Arizona investors use this figure to evaluate property performance. Elective share, a surviving spouse's statutory right to claim a portion of a decedent's estate, regardless of will provisions, under Arizona probate law. Emblements, crops produced by human labor considered personal property. In Arizona, agricultural transactions, emblements may transfer separately from land. Eminent domain, government authority to take private property for public use with just compensation. Arizona agents may encounter eminent domain in highway or utility projects. Encroachment, an unauthorized physical intrusion onto another's property. Common Arizona examples include fences, driveways, or structures crossing boundary lines. Encumbrance, any claim, lien, restriction, or right affecting property title. Arizona title commitments list encumbrances that must be reviewed and resolved. Enforceability, the ability of a contract to be upheld by a court. In Arizona, enforceability depends on proper formation, legality, and capacity. Equalization, the adjustment of assessed values to ensure fair property taxation across jurisdictions. Equilibrium, a market condition where supply and demand are balanced. Arizona markets fluctuate between equilibrium, buyers, and sellers markets. Equitable title, the right to obtain legal title upon fulfillment of contract terms. Arizona buyers gain equitable title upon contract acceptance. Equity, the difference between a property's market value and outstanding loan balances. Equity is a major source of wealth for Arizona homeowners. Equity of redemption, the borrower's right to reclaim property by paying off debt before foreclosure is finalized. Arizona law defines strict redemption timelines. Escalator clause, a lease provision allowing rent increases over time. Common in Arizona, commercial and long-term residential leases. Escheat, transfer of property to the state when an owner dies without heirs or a will. Arizona statutes govern escheat procedures. Escrow, a neutral process where funds and documents are held and dispersed according to instructions. Arizona relies heavily on escrow companies for closings, estate, and interest in real property or the total property owned by an individual. Arizona recognizes multiple estate types. Estoppel, a legal principle preventing a party from contradicting previous actions or statements. Estoppel certificates are common in Arizona commercial transactions. Ethics, professional standards governing conduct. Arizona licensees must comply with statutory, regulatory, and professional ethical requirements. Eviction, the legal removal of a tenant due to lease violations. Arizona law prescribes notice periods and court procedures. Evidence of title, proof of ownership, including recorded documents and title insurance. Arizona transactions rely primarily on title insurance. Exclusion, the right to prevent others from entering or using property. A fundamental element of ownership in Arizona. Exclusive agency listing, a listing agreement where the broker earns a commission unless the owner personally finds the buyer. Exclusive right to sell, a listing agreement guaranteeing the broker a commission regardless of who procures the buyer. Most common listing type in Arizona, executory contract, a contract where performance is still pending. Arizona purchase contracts are executory until closing. Facilitator, a transaction broker assisting parties without fiduciary representation. Arizona recognizes limited service brokerage roles. Fair financing laws, laws prohibiting discrimination in lending. Arizona agents must avoid steering or financing bias. Fair housing laws, federal and state laws ensuring equal housing opportunity. Arizona licensees are strictly liable for violations. Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC, a federal agency ensuring bank deposits and regulating financial institutions. Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation, Freddie Mac, a secondary market entity purchasing mortgages and issuing mortgage-backed securities. Federal Housing Administration, FHA, a HUD agency ensuring loans with flexible qualification standards, widely used in Arizona residential markets. Federal National Mortgage Association, Fannie Mae, a government-sponsored enterprise purchasing mortgages and supporting liquidity. Federal Reserve System, the U.S. central banking system, regulating money supply and interest rates, affecting Arizona mortgage markets. Fee, simple, the most complete form of ownership, granting full legal rights, subject only to law and restrictions. Fiduciary, an agent entrusted to act in the best interest of the principal. Arizona agents owe fiduciary duties to clients. Fiduciary duties, obligations including loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, obedience, reasonable care, and accounting. Fixture, personal property permanently attached to real estate, becoming part of the property. Fixture disputes are common in Arizona transactions. Foreclosure, a legal process allowing lien holders to force sale of property upon default. Arizona primarily uses non-judicial trustee sales, freehold estate, and ownership interest of indefinite duration, including fee simple and life estates. Full service lease, a lease where the landlord pays all operating expenses, common in Arizona office properties. Functional obsolescence, loss of value due to outdated design or features, may be curable or incurable. General agency, a broad agency relationship authorizing wide authority on behalf of a principal. General lien, a lien attaching to all property owned by the debtor. General partnership, a business entity where partners share profits, losses, and liability, often used in Arizona real estate investing. General warranty deed, a deed offering the strongest title protection, with full warranties against defects. Goodwill, An intangible business asset representing reputation and customer loyalty. Government National Mortgage Association, Ginnie Mae. A HUD entity, guaranteeing securities backed by FHA and VA loans. Grantee, the party receiving property rights. Grantor, the party transferring property rights. Gross easement, a personal easement not attached to land ownership. Gross income, multiplier, a valuation shortcut based on gross annual income. Gross rent multiplier, a valuation shortcut based on gross monthly rent. Gross lease, a lease where the landlord pays operating expenses. Ground lease, a long-term lease of land only, common in Arizona commercial developments. Hazard insurance, insurance protecting improvements against damage, required by Arizona lenders. Highest and best use, the most profitable, legally permissible use of property. Holographic will, a handwritten will recognized under Arizona law if statutory requirements are met. Home equity loan, a loan secured by the owner's equity in a residence. Homestead laws, laws protecting a primary residence from certain creditor claims and requiring spousal consent for conveyance in Arizona. Homestead tax exemption, a property tax exemption, reducing assessed value for qualifying homeowners, where applicable.